I'm Clarke Speaks, the catastrophic injury lawyer. Welcome to The Verdict.
So what's at risk talking to this insurance adjuster without consulting with someone?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, in North Carolina, is the biggest risk that you have is that they determine that you contributed in some way to your own injuries, your own accident. So North Carolina is one of a few states, just a couple of states, so a handful of states that have something called contributory negligence. So if they were 99% at fault and you were 1% at fault, then you recover zero, no matter how great your damages are, no matter how great your injuries are. Um, if you were at all responsible for your own injuries, then you recover nothing. And so what they may be doing is looking for a basis to reduce or to eliminate your claim completely through contrib or something along those, like contributory negligence or something like that. The other thing that they might be doing is looking for a basis for reducing the value of your claim. So they might ask you about your pre-existing conditions, your previous medical history. There's nothing wrong with them asking you that. They should ask you that. If I'm doing my job and I was representing the insurance company, I would ask that too. So they're not illegal or there's nothing illegal or immoral about doing that. But it's a problem because you have to, first of all, you may not necessarily know. So, for example, if your back is hurt in an accident and they ask you, have you ever hurt your back before? I mean, who has not hurt their back before? Everybody's hurt their back in some way. Do you have any previous back injuries? That's an ambiguous, and open-ended question. You know, the real question is, do you have any unresolved back injuries that affect exactly the same location that is hurt in this accident in exactly the same way? You know, now this is a question that might have relevance. Otherwise, it has the potential to confuse somebody, and it could be harmful. So if you say, "Yeah, my back hurt," I hurt my back this, and as we get older, we have more and more of these kinds of incidents in our lives. So, for example, if someone were to ask me, have you ever hurt your back before? Sure, yeah, I've hurt my back. Pulled a muscle, got hit with a baseball, and not when I was 9 years old. By this, phenomenal pitcher and all. And I heard it sports growing up, and I heard it. Maybe trying to surf or do something with my kids that I had no business doing. But I don't have unresolved back pain. My back is fine. So if I were to get in an accident and I were to be asked that question, have you ever been hurt your back before? Yeah, I've hurt my back before. Okay, and then how'd you hurt your back? Well, when I was little, I got hit with a baseball right in the back by this kid who was crazy talented and much better than I, and so that was a problem. And so then they don't ask any more questions. Well, now we come up to trial and they say, well, does your back hurt? Yes. Wasn't it true that your back was hurt before? Isn't it true that your back was hurt in 1976 or whatever? Isn't it true that And you can see how now they have eroded my claim. That there's no relationship between these two things. One of them is resolved, long ago, and then one of them is a recent injury. But if these things aren't clear, and now I have an opportunity to explain myself, and a good personal injury attorney would say, "Hey, can you explain to me how both of these things are true? You had an injury in 1978 or whatever, and then you have an injury now, but one doesn't impact the other." Then I can say, "Well, this injury was resolved years ago, and it didn't give me any more trouble, and this injury is new, and it's in a different place, and it hurts in a different way." I have not had any problems with it before. So that's in a way, but it's still, they've created a doubt. They've created a reason to lessen the value and to reduce the value of your claim. And so what you'd rather do, rather than try to rehabilitate that statement, is to prevent that problem from happening in the first place by having a um, a experienced professional personal injury attorney with you when you're making that original statement. So there's two ways that statement can be problematic. The first way is they can eliminate the value of your claim altogether in certain circumstances. The second way is they can reduce it in other circumstances. And that's by no means an exhaustive list of the things they can do to try to eliminate or reduce, but that's an example of each of those things.
And that's where going to a physician and getting checked out after the accident comes in helpful, right? Am I
Sure. Well, so the first thing I would do is well, if you have to have emergent medical care, then by all means, go to the physician first. Once are stable, then I think the next call needs to be to an experienced legal professional who can help you make sure that you answer those questions and make sure that you're make sure that you're asking the questions that you need to. For example, what you may do in that situation is your lawyer or your case manager, the paralegal who's communicating with you during the pendency of your claim might say to you, "Hey, when you go to the physician this last time, can you please ask his opinion on this? Will you have any ongoing problems as a result of this collision?" And then a lot of times that doctor will put it in the medical report, and that'll save you some time and energy and trouble. And then we can say, "Hey, can you make clear to your doctor that this injury is in a different location than what your previous back pain has been?" So then they can say, "Well, yeah, I mean, I had a pain in my shoulder from where I had playing softball or whatever, but this is in my lower back that it's hurting me now, and this is a different place." And so that way it's clear in the medical records. So a lot of this comes back to clarity and complete and accurate information more so than anything else. But we want to be precise about it. And also your memory, fades as time goes on. So you want to make sure that the accuracy of this information is important. So we do want you to be able to document these things properly. And the way to do that is to communicate with your legal professionals going into these medical appointments.
Well, thank you for talking to me about a recorded statement following an injury. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us to stay up to date with our weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.